It's the series premiere with G.I. Joe Issue 1, the biggest comic book launch of the decade. Conrad Hauser, codename Duke, has assembled a special force known as G.I. Joe to battle the rising power of the mysterious Cobra in the aftermath of the Autobots and Decepticons' arrival on Earth. But the enigmatic Cobra Commander has unleashed the power of Energon like never before, featuring many familiar faces and the first appearance of an all-new character. This is the comic that will change everything you know about G.I. Joe. And that's only half the surprises in store from the chart-topping Energon Universe dream team of Joshua Williamson and Tom Reilly. But what does Talking Joe think? Find out in just a second.
Are we on Talking Joe?
Brand new.
Hey, we're talking brand new Joe. Hey, we're on a brand new show. Deep dive, blow by blow. Spotting Uzis and crossbow. Like a buzzball or pogo. Got ninjas like Don Shadow. Comics are how I spend my dough. We're coming to you in stereo. It's time for Talking Joe with Mark and Tim. Here we go.
Brand new.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Hey, it's me, Mark, coming to you from the far reaches of the Energon Universe, and it is here. You are listening to Talking Joe, the G.I. Joe Comics podcast, as we talk the issue everyone has been waiting for. It's G.I. Joe Issue 1, released the 13th of November, 2024. Joining me, as always, to talk about the issue, it's a real American Tim. It's Tim Finn. How are you?
Hello, listeners, and hello, Mark. I'm well.
Hey. So, Tim, it felt like this day would never come, but we're here. G.I. Joe Issue 1 is out. Big news. The Bleeding Cool story said that there were nearly 250,000 pre-orders, and I suspect that number could be even higher, because I think that probably is like direct market retailer orders through the likes of their distributor, which wouldn't necessarily include retailer exclusive covers on top of that.
Yeah, it's a little hard to know. In years past, Diamond, which is short for Diamond Comic Distributors, was the benevolent monopoly, and when it released its sales figures, that could pretty much count for everything. And not every publisher goes through Diamond anymore, and some publishers go through Diamond and other distributors, and so we have to rely on some different outlets for sales figures. So there's a little guesswork here. But yes, we have heard from an artist who has drawn retailer exclusives what the print runs for retailer exclusives are at a minimum, so we can do some guessing. And this sure is a lot of comics. A G.I. Joe comic hasn't sold this well since 1988 or 1989. And to your first point, yes, it felt like this day would never come. And even in October, this still felt far away. And then all of a sudden, people were talking about it, and the advanced PDF copy was floating around for retailers and for review, and then all of a sudden I get my shipping invoice for my store and it's got G.I. Joe, and I think, oh, we're going to have that in a week. And it's very exciting. And the funny thing is that, as I said in a previous episode, this is the 21st G.I. Joe comic. Well, I guess 22nd if you count the Free Comic Book Day or the Energon Universe special, which has a short G.I. Joe story.
And to clarify for listeners who are confused, we're saying this is the 22nd G.I. Joe comic of this new Energon Universe. So 5 being Duke, 5 being Cobra Commander, 5 being Scarlet, 5 being Destro, and 1 free comic book day gets us to here.
Yes. And in 2023, when this announcement hit in was it the spring or summer, that Skybound would have a new G.I. Joe, and then also the continued other G.I. Joe, this is the G.I. Joe that we all kind of thought we would get as the first one. You know, the team forms and they go after Cobra. But what we got instead was 20 issues of really exciting prologue material to set up the factions and the status quo that this is a G.I. Joe that exists in a world with alien robots and Energon and also other aliens, although I don't know that we'll get into that in the pages of a G.I. Joe comic. And there's a really nice sort of repetition here, a parallel here, because the first G.I. Joe comic of this new continuity that we did get was written by, drawn by, and colored by these 3 really talented people, Williamson, Reilly, and Bellaire, and they all returned for this. And I have no doubt that if other people had made this G.I. Joe #1, Skybound would have picked really good people. The fact that the people who launched Duke #1 to such sales and artistic success, I really liked Duke #1, that reinforces my excitement and my sense that this is going to be okay, that this is going to be good, that they're not going to sort of turn left or, you know, flub it. And you know, movies and TV are full of examples where, you know, the first one in the series is great and then the later one isn't as good. And, you know, comic books, you know, there's a long running series or there's a mini series that everyone loves, and then there's a sequel and it's not as good. And so maybe the question for today is this issue 1 as exciting as, you know, Duke #1? And when we finish this first arc, is it as exciting as the Duke arc, the Cobra Commander arc? So that's my preamble. I am very excited, and I was so excited to read this, I sort of couldn't concentrate, and I read it really fast.
Yeah.
So I think I was anxious, but I mean in a good way.
I get that for sure. And you've just been back from the Assembly Required convention in Des Moines, Iowa, with some special guests there, including Larry Hama and Ron Wagner, etc. But what was the sense there of people's expectation for that? Did you feel like people were hyped up for this dropping this week?
Just a little bit. You know, Assembly Required is a wonderful show, and like other G.I. Joe shows, the focus is mostly toys. And I sort of had a guess before I got there that I would see no IDW comics for sale and maybe no Energon Universe comics for sale. And I did see a few. I think there were maybe 3 dealers who had comics. And 2 of them, it was just Marvel. And one of them had, I think maybe, 10 or 20 of some IDW issues. They were on the earlier side, but I don't think I saw anyone with, Real American Hero 250 through 300. I thought maybe I'd see someone with some variant covers from the Duke miniseries or the Scarlet miniseries. And I don't believe anyone had a single Energon Universe comic, or since Duke and Cobra Commander are out as graphic novels, so is Scarlet, and Destro's coming very soon. I believe no one had any of that, which was surprising.
Interesting.
When I talk to people, about sort of the state of G.I. Joe or G.I. Joe in general, people talked about classified, or the classified figures, or they talked about the new Reaction 3 3/4 inch line that has O-rings, or they talked about, anything about older G.I. Joe toys the way that you would at a, convention where you're comparing this one to this one, or someone's talking about a prototype. But I believe attendance at Assembly Required 2024 was 400 or over 400, and I believe attendance a year ago was at 300. So it's a very small sampling, whereas the attendance for Joe Fest is over 10,000 a year ago, and I believe over 11 or 12,000 this year. And there were several comics dealers at that show. I think there were 6, and that's a huge space. And there were some dealers who had, I think there were 2 dealers who had Energon Universe regular issues and variants. And, all the dealers were just selling regular comics, Iron Man and Batman and, Golden Age and Silver Age and Modern Age. Surprising that the Energon Universe didn't have more of any presence that I saw at Assembly Required. But again, it's such a sliver of fandom, so maybe not surprising.
Yeah, and outside of the G.I. Joe cons last weekend, both Tom Reilly and Chris Mooneyham were at various conventions across the states of America. And I've seen a couple of cool sketches from them. Shane Simic got a nice sketch of Clutch from G.I. Joe, and Chris Mooneyham drew someone a cool-looking Serpentor Khan on a sketch cover as well. So cool to see them getting out at the conventions and people grabbing some nice sketches and commissions from them.
Yeah, and Tom Reilly was at New York Comic Con 3 weeks before that, as was Kirkman. I'm not sure about other people. I don't think Williamson was.
I think he was there. I think he was there as well, and Andrea Milano.
Okay, cool.
Right, let's get into this here issue.
Lead operatives: writer Joshua Williamson, artist Tom Reilly, colorist Jordie Bellaire, letterer Russ Wooton, ground support Ben Abernethy, editor Andres Juarez, publication design Ashby Florence, production, and then special thanks to 4 people at Hasbro, and then a big list of cover artists. I believe we're not really going to talk about covers in this episode. Mark, remind our listeners why.
It's because we've done an episode which is exclusively about covers. So check back on the YouTube history to see our cover episode in which we talk to cover artist Jamie Sullivan about the exclusive retailer cover that he did for G.I. Joe issue 1.
And we also talk about every other cover. It's a regular length episode, folks. It's not shorter because we're not talking about interiors or stories. And Mark is referring not just to talkingjoe.co.uk for audio episodes, the audio format of that episode. Mark is pointing you towards YouTube. That episode really wants to be watched because when we talk about each cover, we show it. I did think at the appropriate time in this episode, for people who either missed that episode or just want more of the normal flow of an episode, I did think maybe just for a minute, we could each touch on sort of our 1 or 2 favorite covers in a very general sense for this episode.
Okie dokie.
Let's have a look at the covers in the gallery.
Covers for this issue, do check out the YouTube exclusive for a deep dive. Since we recorded that episode, there have been a further about 10 covers for retailer exclusives that have been released. The best place to see those is over on the Talking Joe Facebook group. So head on over to Facebook and find the Talking Joe group where those get posted. We pretty much beat everyone else to the pip, to be honest, if not following shortly behind for those being released. The biggest of those is the David Mack cover, which features Baroness in her G.I. Joe style costume. It's a bit of a companion piece to Baroness as featured on the front cover to Duke issue 1.
And I'll also just point out a little thing here that one of the cover artists announced since we did that episode is Alex Sinclair, who is known as a color artist. Alex Sinclair has been coloring Venom for Marvel and colored some, I think, Darth Vader, and is best known as the guy who always colors Jim Lee for the last 15 years. And so he's not someone who I think of as a penciler or inker or sort of digital painter, and he has an exclusive variant cover.
Yeah. And seeing all of these covers made me think about, if I was a commissioning editor for a cover doing one of these, which artist would I pick? What sort of composition would I pick? Tim, would the idea of doing a retailer exclusive comic for Hub Comics would on a scale of 0 through to 10, how appealing a prospect would that be for you?
Almost a 5.
Huh.
It would be fun because I could, pick the artist and pick the color artist, and I'm finicky, and it could be someone who's already got a connection to G.I. Joe or who's already got a connection to Hub. I know some artists, I have friends who draw for Marvel and DC, and or it could be a curveball. It could be someone who has never drawn G.I. Joe and is more, indie or more commercial arts or more sort of Mad Magazine or cartoony. But it's a lot of work, and you got to order a lot of copies, and retailer exclusives, there just gets to be so much of it. I feel like I'm adding to the sort of, the word glut has such a negative connotation. So what's a word like that has a neutral connotation?
If I phrase it another way, I think it's hard to stand out, particularly if there's so many. So how to make how to make it extra special, and it not just being another one of 50 or so.
You know what I would do? I forget who it was. I think it was it DC or Image? Someone 5 years ago did a retailer exclusive program where the artist had drawn a generic storefront, and you could get your store's name printed on the sort of sign. And whoever it was, Deathstroke or Hulk was like busting out or busting in or something. And I think what I would actually want to do is have an artist who I know and love draw my store from the outside, because I think I have a very handsome looking store exterior, and some Joes or Cobras either hanging out or punching each other in front of it. But it doesn't strike me as a very strong urge. It just strikes me as a novel idea. So I shouldn't do it because it's not enough.
Yeah, I think the fun of commissioning the art and getting the thing made would be outweighed by the logistics of actually selling the thing and getting it all shipped out. And I think it's for the people who do it regularly and sort of get that as a smooth process for all of that fulfillment of order, pack it, ship it, all the rest of it, that's good. But if you're just doing it as a one-off and you don't have all of that kind of infrastructure and capability built up already, I think it would be a trickier prospect.
Last thought on that: if I got 500 or 1,000 copies and sold a bunch of them, but was still sitting on dozens and dozens or even hundreds, I might be a little embarrassed, just for myself. Well, what do I do with these? These are so tied to the place, I don't know that a random person in Texas or Nevada or Seattle, or Canada wants this comic because they don't know what my store is. And to a great extent, the greatest interest for issue G.I. Joe #1 is around when issue 1 is released. So good luck to all of the retailers that, both brick and mortar and online, who are doing this, because there is an impressive amount for this issue.
Very good.
What it sort of feels like is that since there's only one series now, it's not Duke and Cobra Commander, it's not Scarlet and Destro. At least for this issue 1, they are doubling up, or they are tripling up.
So this front cover, I really like it. It's really striking. I think it's one of these instantly iconic covers. I think we first saw it.
You're talking about Tom Reilly's regular A cover.
That's right. Yeah, we first saw it. It seems like quite a long time ago, and I've seen it like hundreds of times since in various guises. And I think it's a great lineup. He sort of got all of these characters and all of this gear, all of the stuff, sort of background, sort of little details of these potential scraps of Transformers, and all of it hangs together nicely. There's the balance of the blues and the greens on the right, and the reds and the blues, the Cobra blues on the left, and it sort of hangs together really nicely as a cohesive image. Gives a really crisp image of these different Joes, all of their tech, and doesn't get overwhelmed by the busyness, which could have quite easily have been the case. So I think it's one of those instantly iconic G.I. Joe covers.
Yeah, the two that I want to speak about just briefly before we do the regular episode are cover A, the one you just mentioned. And I talked about in the other episode how in so many ways this is sort of as different as it can be from the original 1982 G.I. Joe #1 cover. For example, that one had a red background. This one mostly has a blue background. That one was just the good guys. This one is both good and bad guys. And then one more comparison, that one, they're running at you. And this one, they're standing. But everyone here is tense, but cool. And Duke's pose and, the coloring of him in the background, and even his sort of size and composition somewhat recall the cover to Duke issue 1. And I don't know if that's on purpose or coincidental, but either way, it's a good idea. I think if in the back of your mind this reminds you of that other G.I. Joe comic that people talked about, that's cool. And the contrast between the front half and the second half are so much fun because the bad guys are similarly tense, but they look like they're having a little more fun, actually. They look sly, whereas the Joes look, ready. And I forget if we mentioned this in the previous episode, but Cobra Commander's redesign has a little bit of this George Washington costume look to it, which is funny and, clever. It's just all so handsomely drawn. And the sort of the tease of Transformers, recognizable Transformers bits. And then, the logo here is not the Real American Hero logo. It doesn't have outlines. It doesn't have 3 colors for the stripes. The star sits differently over the I and the J. It doesn't have periods after the first 2 letters. And then there's this old school thing, Marvel Comics in the 70s and 80s and 90s, where there's a corner box. It's floating. There's no literal box, but there's a corner box with some floating heads. So if your comic book store fans issues because it has more comics than spaces for them, and all they can do is show, an inch of every issue, and then something else has to sit in front of it. You see the Skybound logo, you see these 2 good guy heads, these 2 bad guy heads, the wonderful but albeit slightly hard to read EU logo, image, and then #1. And it's just a lot of fun. The other cover I wanted to talk about very briefly is cover D, drawn by David Finch, inked by Danny Mickey, and colored by Dave McCaig. Finch's characters are always more chiseled and a little more severe than is my preference, but no doubt this guy can draw. And while I've never needed to see him draw G.I. Joe, it's really fun to see him draw G.I. Joe because he's a top guy who's drawn a lot of Batman and some Ultimate X-Men and a lot of other high-profile projects. And I always appreciate it when someone who I think would sort of never draw G.I. Joe because either G.I. Joe's not cool or its current publisher sort of doesn't think that way or can't afford it. It's really cool when such an artist, finger quotes, hot, or just sort of acclaimed, draws a G.I. Joe cover. And then on top of it, this does act like an issue 1 cover, but it's just the bad guys. And there's this really bold orange background that's almost half the cover compositionally. And yet Cobra Commander and the thing below him really pop out in blue. And then, the logo sort of picks up the blue again. And when you mentioned a minute ago that the Tom Reilly cover A is instantly iconic, all of these months in the back of my mind, I have known that when I sit down to read this, after my store gets it, before we record this episode, I have to read cover A. Even though it's all the same guts across these dozens of covers, right? I could read the one with the cardstock blank cover. I could read the one with the Jenny Frizen image of Chameleon, no logo and no type, no issue number. But I just needed to hold cover A because that, at its core, that's the thing.
Yes, and if I was going to call out a second cover, it would be the Lee Bermejo cover. Again, I think sort of instantly iconic. One of those sort of A-lister artists that you wouldn't even think would be drawing a G.I. Joe cover, so wouldn't be probably on your short list because you'd never draw G.I. Joe, but yet here we are. This amazing cover of Cobra Commander with Duke reflected in his mask. Again, sort of great cover, instantly iconic. And as Tim suggested, if it was to be transformed into a poster, it would make an excellent candidate. Shall we get into the insides of this comic? Turn that front page and find out what happens in a plot breakdown.
Plot breakdown.
Duke is on a training mission with his new team, Rock and Roll, Stalker, Covergirl, Clutch and the Baroness. Baroness's jump jetpack fails and Duke has to make a mid-air rescue. Elsewhere in Springfield, Cobra's army grows as its firepower is upgraded with Energon tech. Destro shows Cobra Commander a new Energon-fueled rifle. In a nightclub in Abu Dhabi, a new character called Risk has a fight with some goons before he gets a message on his watch to return home. At the pit, the Joes are briefed on their first mission to guard a shard of robot technology being held in a secure facility. However, Cobra are able to track this too, and they send a force of Cobra troopers to take it, led by Mercer and his Vipers. Mercer's squad overwhelms the Joes, and as they go to leave, Rock and Roll leaps at the Vipers before he was blasted by what looks to be a fatal onslaught of laser fire.
To be continued.
Crikey, Tim.
Okay, I just want to point out two quick things. One, this issue is oversized. It's not 20 pages like comics are now. It's not 22 pages like G.I. Joe was at Marvel and Devils do. It's 30 pages. That also means that it's not $3.99 cover price. It's $4.99 cover price. And for several months, although this issue is new, we have been reading previews of almost of the first 5 pages. The first 5 pages minus the last panel or two where there was sort of a tease, coming November so-and-so, G.I. Joe #1. And so I love double-sized comics, anniversary issues, first issues, final issues, and this is that. This is oversized. It's not double-sized, but nowadays oversized is what you get. And Mark, let's talk about how much time has passed since Destro 5 and sort of what has changed, or what are the things that this is picking up from the end of Scarlet 5, if any, and Destro 5.
Yes.
Or even the free comic book day story, the Energon Universe special story, which was the epilogue to the Duke miniseries.
Yeah, so we've got page 1 of this book sort of encapsulates Duke, the 5-issue miniseries, onto one page, essentially. Duke is in a mid-air collision with a transformer who destroys his friend. I mean, he doesn't know what it is, but he's sort of on a revenge mission to find out what it is. There's panel 2 is Rock and Roll's drones firing at him as he sort of is on the run with Clutch. There's a panel of him destroying a bat, and then the final panel is kind of where Duke 5 ends up, with Duke shaking Hawk's hand and sort of accepting the mission to lead a new G.I. Joe team to tackle the robot menaces. And then in sort of subsequent to that as well, we also had the mission where the Baroness is recruited onto the team, and we see the reveal of her outfit. So it's not, I don't think it's particularly explicit about how much time has elapsed. It doesn't feel like there's necessarily a lot of time that has elapsed, that this is a team that is still forming. And when he's talking a little bit later to Hawk and getting his advice, you get the sense that this is a team still very much in its early days. He talks about, I'm thinking about how I'm going to turn this group into a team. They've got their individual experiences, but they've not necessarily, had a chance yet to work much together here. And this is building up to their first mission. So in a nutshell, we're picking up fairly on the heels of what we've seen before.
Yeah, and then specifically, just remind us. I know it was briefly in your plot breakdown. Destro issue 5, something Cybertronian technology, and then G.I. Joe number 1. Both Duke and Destro refer to a piece of Cybertronian technology. Duke calls it a shard.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the image and you realize the scale, because it's two, they look like cruisers or destroyers. I don't think they're battleships and they're not carriers, but two huge Navy ships on either side of this.
It's big.
Giant thing that looks a little like a sliver of, I don't want to say Cybertron because the scale's not right, but it's somewhat rounded. Like if you're peeling an orange, it's like the first piece. What were you going to say?
Well, this is a key part, I think, of the joined up Energon universe here, and the sort of the books crossing over in small ways. That where if you're reading them, you can get kind of a bit more of that bigger universe piece, but you don't necessarily have to for it to make much sense. So reading this in isolation, it's just like, there's a giant bit of metal and the Joes are gone to protect it. Okay, run into the plot. But if you're reading Transformers at the same time, it's feeding into it. That is what's feeding into this, that in the plot of Transformers in issue 12, the Cybertron is kind of being drawn into Earth's orbit somehow. Or sort of like teleporting sort of a gateway to Cybertron. And when that gateway closes, it slices off a chunk of Cybertron, which then falls into the ocean. And that is made much more explicit in the pages of Transformers issue 14, where there's a splash page which shows this shard of metal in the ocean, very much echoing that panel, that double page panel of Duke and Destro looking at that drone satellite photography of that shard of metal.
I will admit, just jumping over to Transformers for a moment, I'm a big Transformers fan. I've been gobbling up the Transformers monthly. I think it was issue 12, which was Daniel Warren Johnson's final issue. No, sorry, it was Jorge Corona's final issue as artist at the end of the second arc. And what you just described, where there's a sort of a circular portal and Cybertron is being drawn to Earth, sort of like a space bridge, across a distance, and a sliver of it, something, and then crashes. I actually found that scene in that comic a little hard to follow, and a friend of mine also did. To be fair, I was reading it at night, before bed, and I did not read it a second time the next day. But okay, please, but this is a good point, that this stuff is showing up in all the books, and it is more fun if you can to read them.
Yeah, and there's this scene in Transformers issue 14, which is released the same day as G.I. Joe issue 1, which makes that much.
Which I haven't read.
Well, at the time of recording, it's not officially out yet. So unless you own a comic shop, Tim, there'd be no way that you'd be able to read it.
Hey, man, I only thought I had to read G.I. Joe 1 early for this episode. I didn't know I'd also read another comic in prep.
Yeah. How dare you not preempt that you had to read the comics that aren't yet released. Read Transformers issue 14 as well, and you can kind of see the sort of the little Venn diagram of connective tissue between the books. But like I say, I don't think it's essential that you have to read it. What the other piece that this leans into, I think, is also Destro issue 5. It's not completely clear, but there's this sort of space debris that at the very end of Destro 5 sort of comes through space, smashes through the Overkill satellites floating that were already wrecked by a bomb, and then sort of comes crashing down to Earth, I think, again in an ocean. And I think the fact that there is this sort of, space debris, landing in the ocean, I think the implication is that this is the same thing. It's not kind of drawn in quite the same way, and the scale isn't completely clear. But I think that's one of those things where you've got different writers and artists interpreting a brief in a way that sometimes it looks different in one book rather than another. So, yeah, my guess is that this is the same thing that we saw in Destro 5, which smashed through the Overkill satellite.
Okay, this is helpful. This sort of resituates us with the continuity.
While we're talking about this sort of space shard, there was a plot point here, and it's the MacGuffin that drives the book. The two teams, there's a bit of the shard is taken to be studied. The Joe team is protecting it. The Cobras attack to try and capture it. What's clear is that it's a massive piece of metal when they're looking at it from this satellite imagery, but in place they've just got a tiny human-sized chunk of metal that they're protecting. So I think there's just a slight plot disconnect for me, which is, why is this particular chunk of metal quite so significant? Why is there such a big confrontation over this one bit of metal and not perhaps the rest of the metal?
Yes, I agree. And also, there's a slight confusion for me, because the massive piece that's in the ocean that's being guarded by two giant warships is roughly the same shape as the very small piece that's in the glass case at the lab that the Joes are guarding. And, it sort of looks like like I said, if you imagine an orange that had a very, very thick and metal peel, the first piece you pull off, it's sort of curved. It's sort of a crust, a spherical crust piece in the glass case on the next page. Anyway, so why doesn't this piece look more like a control nodule or a power core, whatever those might look like? But just in terms of shape vocabulary, I wish that this was, had more spikes, or was more smooth and spherical, or had sort of buttons or glyphs or little glowing nodules on it, because it almost looks like they shrunk it from the middle of the ocean and then put it in this glass case. And that sounds silly, Tim, except that in last month's issue of Transformers, Megatron very specifically, in a flashback, transforms from a giant robot to a tiny gun. And then in the letters page, writer Daniel Warren Johnson says, "Hey everyone, I'm going to take a moment out of answering your letters just to remind you about mass displacement or mass shifting, which is a thing Transformers can do." And that's awesome. I love that. But just as you describe this as a little bit of a plot disconnect, I'm seeing it as a little bit of a visual. Actually, it's not a disconnect; it's a too much connect.
One of those too much connects.
The thing looks like the other thing, and I wish they looked like different things.
Yeah, and it could be kind of almost explained away with a speech bubble, which is like, the largest shard is too well defended, but the laboratory is the weak point, or something along those lines, or
Yes. And either the good guys can say that, we feel secure in how we're defending the big one, or the bad guys can say it, like, oh, we can't go after the big one, let's go after the small one. Do we know how Cobra figures out where this little bit is, where the Joes are hiding it and guarding it.
I think it's already been established in pages of Cobra Commander that Cobra Commander has got a Energon tracker. So I think that
and he got that from Cobra Law. Right. He didn't get that from Destro. He didn't make it himself. He got it from Globulus, sort of off.
I think it might have been from his study of Megatron that he developed that himself.
Right. Okay. Right. Good. Okay. Couple things occurred to me while reading this issue, not about plot or character. One is I'm once again reminded that this series is looking to a great extent at the classified toy designs, and yet Tom Reilly is making his own designs. And, I guess the example is the Cobra Soldiers, where they're a little more detailed than the 1982 Cobra Soldiers, but they're not as detailed as the more modern classified figures. The Cobra Vipers. Oh, hey, is this the first time we've seen Cobra Vipers in the Energon Universe? Okay, so Cobra Vipers, everyone, exciting, had their Energon Universe debut in G.I. Joe #1, and I'm not going to talk about that other guy yet. And they have the red scarf handkerchief,
which is a feature of the classified toy. So they're definitely taking cues from classified in those Viper designs, even if they're not replicating them exactly.
And Tom Reilly's art has a streamlined quality to it. He's not putting in all the detail that, say, a David Finch would. Again, look back at David Finch's cover, where he's really aware of all the stitching and all the ribbing. Reilly doesn't draw all that much detail, and so I don't want him to noodle on all of the stuff that's happening on the Cobra uniform, the Viper uniform. And in fact, a longtime Mega Joe collector said to me at Assembly Required, we were musing about toys, and he's more interested in, 82 to 2007. He said, classified's over detailed. And that's actually the second person who has said this to me. So 2 out of millions of people, folks, think that classified is too much detail. And then there is a Cobra Fang in this, and I sort of wondered, is this the 1980s Cobra Fang, or is this the one from a year or two ago that's help me out, Mark? It's slightly retooled, and then it can fit the 4-inch figures.
Yeah, that's right, isn't it? Yeah, it's I think I don't know whether we see enough of it to tell for sure if it's one or the other, because they were so similar.
Yeah,
it's when it's appeared before, it's been closer to that. I think they called it a retro 3 3/4 design, but yeah, very very much in keeping with the 1980s aesthetic to it. I thought that these Cobra infantry, whatever we're calling them, were looking quite Michael Golden-y in places.
You mean the Cobra soldiers, or do you mean the Vipers?
It's the soldiers.
The guys all in blue. What do you mean? What do you mean, Michael Golden-y?
I don't know that I can put my finger on it. I sort of see just the way that they're drawn just puts me in mind a little bit of the way that Michael Golden drew the Cobra soldiers as they were sort of jumping off of an Aspid helicopter onto a train roof in the pages of Yearbook 2.
You know what? Actually, on page 27, where Duke has smacked yanked. The sound effect is yank. The hand gesture looks like a backhanded slap or a grab and yank and let go. The sound effect is yank. But actually, yes, now that you say that, there are some ink lines, like three parallel lines next to each other on one arm, one leg, the other arm, and then the 4 sort of effect lines, the surprise lines coming out of his eyes. And it's not quite cartooning, but it's the way that Tom Reilly simplifies eyes. Yes, I'm seeing, I think Reilly might have been looking at Yearbook 2, when drawing this Cobra infantry, and that's great. At Assembly Required, when I was chatting with Ron Wagner and Larry Hama and Mark Pennington at dinner, Hama started talking about how great Yearbook 2 was, and Ron Wagner talked about it in similar terms. So Golden is one of those artists who a lot of comic book artists like his stuff and know how good he is.
So the artist.
Yes. Something else about issue 1 of G.I. Joe that jumps out that's not character or story is now the bad guys have lasers. And I think this is inevitable considering Energon and the fact that the Transformers, the Cybertronians, have lasers. They are not shooting explosive pieces of metal out of their, well, I mean, maybe the ones who transform into tanks are, but, you know, Megatron's fusion cannon, whoever that belongs to right now, and, you know, other weapons on shoulders and, you know, in hands, those shoot lasers. And the Joes and or Cobras are going to have to level up, I have been abstractly thinking. I also kind of don't want them to, because then maybe it's not G.I. Joe, it's not grounded, it becomes too fantastic, it becomes too sci-fi. But I also think this alludes to the cartoon in a fun way, but that makes story sense or makes world building sense. And maybe it's going to allow them to zap bad guys without it being guns that have bullets, which is more acceptable, even if technically it's sort of more horrible and gory, because, you know, we think of Star Wars, you know, blasters, you know, Star-Lord in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, you know, he's got guns, but they don't look like guns because they've done this weird double gun thing, and they're just called blasters, and blasters are okay.
When Cobra Commander was shooting this laser gun with the zap 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 at the dummy, it made me think of two kind of cool callbacks, which is one, the cartoon where Cobra would fire blue lasers and the Joes would fire red lasers most of the time anyway. And then the second bit was a callback to Cobra Commander from the pages of A Real American Hero, who often could be found back at Cobra Base shooting at a target range of G.I. Joes sort of lined up with, you know, to be shot at down the firing range. So two fun callbacks, and you know, particularly.
Is this weapon that Destro hands to Cobra Commander, this laser rifle? Is this something we've seen in a toy or in a comic book or a cartoon before, or is this a Tom Reilly invention?
So what Tom Reilly is doing here with his weapons, and you see it on the covers and you see it on the designs that were used in the ash cans, is a lot of specificity in the armaments that are being used, and a lot of artists don't really like the technical details on the gear that is being used, but you know, it's clear here that Tom is putting a lot of detail and effort into having each Joe have like signature weapons, and those looking very unique and very detailed. So the weapon here for the Cobra laser looks a lot like a modified Steyr AUG. That's I might pronounce that incorrectly, but as STEYRAUG sort of rifle. So it would normally have a magazine, I think, on the back of it, but otherwise the design of it looks quite similar. So Tom or Mr. Reilly, I guess, has modified it to make it look a little bit more different. Look a little different. It doesn't need the conventional magazine and so on. But you see it across the team, and sort of looking at the front cover, the pages here, and the design images that have been shared. That Rock and Roll has an M249 saw. Risk has his moneymaker, which he calls it, which is looks to be a Winchester model 1866 lever action yellow boy. The Baroness has a KRISS Chris Vector. Duke has a Heckler & Koch XM8. cover girl has this Keltec KSG 410 shotgun. Stalker has a Scorpion Evo 3, and the Chameleon has a Barrett sniper rifle. So there's a lot of technical gear going on there. And if I were a betting man, I might guess that Reilly has got some of these in a 3D package so that he's able to draw them from all sorts of different angles and get all of the details right.
You had said that some artists, have a hard time or don't want to draw the technical stuff, weapons or vehicles. I do think a lot of them are happy to do it once, on a cover or like a tryout page. And the real challenge of G.I. Joe is doing it over and over from, as you say, many different angles. And Tom Reilly is definitely up to the challenge here. So do you feel like these lasers, this fits, or is this sort of going too far?
I think it fits. I think we're living in an Energon universe, and the direction of travel is that Cobra wants to use Energon as their key offensive capability. So it kind of stands to reason that they're weaponizing it. And I think keep it special. I think if it gets overused, it might feel a bit tired, particularly as we've talked about before, that maybe the first time you introduce something, it's the most deadly thing in the world, and nothing can beat it. And then by the second time it appears, it suddenly becomes a lot more beatable. So I think it's a balance that you do have to be careful with, but I think it seems to fit here, and I'm happy to go with it.
Yeah, and also I've said this before. Every time G.I. Joe swerves a little left in the Energon universe, it's probably still swerving right in the Hama Real American Universe. I want to talk about color. I'm on record as being excited that Jordie Bellaire, in this very episode, returned from the Duke miniseries to color this. Bellaire colored Tom Reilly on his Ant-Man miniseries for Marvel, on his Thing miniseries for Marvel, and that 2-issue Night Terrors Superman miniseries for DC, I believe. And it's not just that she's a good color artist, because she colors lots of different artists. She also writes comics. It's that she's a really good color artist for Reilly. And she's doing a lot with a limited palette, but you never feel like it's lazy or rushed. And what's really happening is there's a color script where, the first page, this flashback, it's just 3 colors. It's this sort of orangey beige and this sort of sour gray and this like light yellow, or I guess, and the blacks are printed as a sort of a dark brown. And then we get to the present day, and some of those colors continue, but Reilly does this subtle shift where she takes some of the colors under the black inking and she moves them over a few pixels, because the Joes are in motion. They're falling, they're flying. And it looks a little like a printing error. It looks a little bit like old printing where one of the plates is out of alignment. And I think she's doing that because the Joes are in motion and because, retro. But that it's not an error because the black outlines in the lettering are crisp, right? And then you turn the page again, and on pages 4 and 5, this is where Duke's talking about the team. And it alternates between panels in the present tense, which are these sort of 3 colors, like on pretty close to page 1. And then flashback panels as Duke continues to narrate, where you see the Joes sort of in their other life. For example, rock and roll is, he's not just surfing, he's, what do you call that? Windsurfing? Sail surfing?
Kite surfing.
Great, thank you. And these sort of flashback panels, the black ink has been printed as red. And then the sort of fill colors are this, very, very light yellow. And then you turn the page and the scene continues as the colors have been established. And I'm going to skip one scene. I'm going to skip another scene just to keep this a little shorter. Okay, so we get to pages 13 and 14 with Link, and the panels alternate between purple and no color, the white of the page, and this sort of mustard and the white of the page. And Bellaire is doing this for a couple of reasons. One, she might be referring to the strobing color lights of this nightclub. You know, for a moment it's purple, for a moment it's yellow, for a moment it's purple, for a moment it's yellow. I think you would actually color it a little differently if that were the case, but she might be alluding to that idea, if not physically that phenomenon. She's also just doing it just to make this scene different from other scenes and just to have you focus on the art in a different way. When you look at black and white art, you read it differently. You maybe spend more, if you like it, you spend more time looking at it. And then if you don't like it, you probably flip through it faster. But, you know, when you listen to a song and the song it's got a wall of sound, there's drums and there's backing vocals and there's synth and there's more drums and there's other synth and there's bass and the guitar and then there's some crunchy sound and, you know, vocals and all this stuff, you know, some sound effects, some movie dialogue, a rocket blasting off in the background. You take it all in and it's very exciting. And then if the song gets really quiet and there's just like one beat and then like the singer comes in and they're quiet, your brain refocuses, right? And that's what's happening here. I don't know that I have the exact words to describe how you take it in differently. You just take it in differently. But this scene is introducing a new character who we've never seen before, and he's in a location that we're not specifically familiar with. And I don't think the script calls out for this kind of thing. I don't think Williamson's writing like this, right? He might have said, it's a nightclub, there's colored strobe lights, and Bellaire says, all right, I'm gonna do this other thing. And then the final page of that scene, 15, there's no purple, right? When Link sort of is six, Rook, Hook, sorry. When Risk, this sounds like I'm making fun of this character. It's just me being forgetful, and I apologize. And as I get to know this character, I will not make this mistake.
Okay, so what's Zelda doing on this page?
Okay, when Risk is victorious in the fight, the color shifting stops because there is no longer a back and forth of you can't come in here, I'm coming in here. Like you better not punch, swing back, duck, punch, right? It's over, he wins, and now the color sort of belongs to him. It's all yellow. And then on...
Now you're quoting Coldplay.
What?
It was all yellow. Okay.
All right, so then on pages 17 and 18, right, it's almost basically two colors. There's this sunset dark orange, and then there's this sort of desaturated brown, even though Hawk and Duke are wearing different things. You know, one kind of jacket, one kind of pants, different kind of pants. I'm not counting their shirts. You have this sort of dominant color. And then I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. So pages 22 and 23, where the Baroness says, you know, oh, guard duty, what a bother. And we see that fragment, that Cybertronian fragment. This whole scene is green, gray, and sort of a pinkish lavender until the final three panels when you get this sort of red alert moment. And it all just becomes red, but there's some texture. And there's a lighter red and a darker red, and even the everybody down, even those two words are that kind of red. And so, you know, letterer Russ Wooton is paying attention and playing along. And then you turn the page and the Fang helicopter attacks, and you have the sort of pastels we saw earlier in the scene, but now it shifts, right? We've gone from sort of almost a blood red or brick red color for those three red alert panels to more orange and more of a brown orange where the Joes are under attack. And then you turn the page, and I'm just going to jump ahead to the final three pages. The Vipers and that guy who we'll talk about in a moment show up, and it's this gray blue with the dull red. And then you turn the page, the final page, it's just that blue and white, glowing white for effect. And so every scene, and even within a scene when something changes, right? Someone feels different, someone attacks, someone starts using weapons, Bellaire changes her palette. And it's mostly just to keep you interested, which is a thing you can do in comics, but she's not coloring everything with local color, right? Duke is wearing his shirt, his Duke shirt, or maybe his regular Duke pants in several scenes in this comic. And in every scene, those pants are colored a different color. She's not always using the sort of normal brown or green brown of, Duke pants. And that makes this exciting. She's also not inventing or poorly exaggerating light sources, and she's not rendering too much, and she's not adding unnecessary textures and highlights. And, for every comic that we've talked about in this podcast, where I've said, I don't like this color, there's too much black mixed in, so it's muddy, or there are too many gradients, or there are too many highlights, or it's too busy, or, this red looks like it's Twizzlers, like it's satin, or this, smoke looks like a thick solid substance, like cream or marshmallow. Man, if only Jordie Bellaire colored those books, because even though she's only using a few or sort of a medium number of colors per page, not only does she know how light behaves, she knows how to change for effect and exaggerate for effect. And it is so gorgeous and satisfying.
Yeah, quite often when you're talking about like the creative team of a book, you focus very much on the writer and inverted commas artist, which is normally penciler. And for this book here with Jordie Bellaire on it, the art team is definitely extends beyond just the penciler inker of Tom Reilly to the colorist as well, because it brings such pop and really elevates the art, and particularly his style is quite clean, crisp, open, not really fiddly with the details, which allows a colorist to really go to town and to make their own mark on the art. It's very distinctive, and it's I think a key part of the look to this book.
And she is using some textures, on page 1. All of the fiery backgrounds have dots, which recall the screen printing of old 4-color comics color printing. And on a couple pages later, this is page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. On the bottom of page 8, there's sort of a splotch under Duke's chin on his neck and then onto his shirt. And that's not sort of continuing what Tom Reilly is doing with his shadows on the left side of Duke's head and nose and neck and shoulder. And it's even on the previous panel where Hawk's hand is on the desk and there's a laptop. There's just some splotch, and I don't quite know what that gets me, but the color is in a weird, beautiful, indirect way, just agreeing with the sort of shadows of this office, which we saw way back in page 1 and 4 of Duke issue number 1 with the blinds and the horizontal lines through them. And Bellaire, I don't know if she really thought about these sort of splotches. It looks like an ink stain that's been knocked back in sort of a, grayish mustard color, but then it's got these dots. It's not a mistake. It's a choice. And I can't quite explain it, but it's beautiful and it agrees with everything else about the comic. So, what a gorgeous, another thing that she's doing through almost all the book is she's not using, or she's selectively using full saturation. She rarely uses 100% yellow, 100% blue, 100% magenta, or if you're mixing colors, right? She's rarely using 100% red, 100% green. Many of her colors are one color and another color to knock it back a little bit. It's opposite, or she's adding she's adding a little bit of all the colors to dull it. It's not a pure blue. It's this grayish blue. It's a slightly greenish blue. It's a slightly pale blue. It's a slightly sour blue. And oh man, gorgeous.
Very good. This is an oversized issue, Tim. It's basically 30 pages, but it felt quick. Even the plot briefing, I didn't feel like I was struggling to fit everything in the way that I sometimes do, where there's, pinging from scene to scene to scene. But if you were to ask me, and I didn't, without knowing it in advance, I wouldn't necessarily have guessed that it was an oversized issue, because it felt such a quick read.
Okay, but some of it is because we've already read the first 5 pages.
I skipped past the first 5
several
pages.
times.
Yeah.
And also, the first page is material we really already know, because not only have we read the Duke miniseries, we sure talked about it.
Oh, interesting, though. Tom Reilly went to the effort of drawing all of these 4 sequences for the montage flashback sequence, rather than just cribbing them from the Duke book. I originally thought, these are just panels from Duke 1 through to 5, but I looked through and they are brand new renditions.
Because he is such a great designer, and he's thinking so much about shapes and geometric shapes, both in positive space and negative space, and in inking. Like, look at panel 1 of the whole comic book, right? This panel divides into 4 things: the bright sky on the left, the helmet, the negative space between the helmet and the hand, and then the hand. And then you can start to subdivide it, because the helmet's really 2 things: the visor on the left with the reflection of the alien robot, and then the visor half on the right with the eye. But then you can subdivide it further, because there's both the visor part and then the gas mask part. Reilly is thinking so much about composition and design and shapes. And also, this is a first issue, and I think he wants to give us the value of new art, even for scenes we have seen before. And I don't think anyone would have given a hard time if he had cribbed that stuff, but I feel like it's sort of unspoken, that he was going to do that, and that when he did that, everyone sort of, without realizing it, nodded and said, yeah, new art there. New art for page 1. Mm-hmm. Just imagine, in terms of reading this, if we had not gotten the preview, how more slowly we might have read the first 5 pages. And if this story didn't do a page of recap, how that first page might have... this is not a criticism. I'm fine with them publishing a preview in other books, or, the ash can. I'm fine with the first issue visually recapping. I actually think that's fun and necessary.
And looking at this introduction, this splash page, we're being introduced to these to the Joe team, having seen bits of them across the series up to this point, and a little moment to kind of pause on each character, find out a little bit of their backstory and all about them, and see that their new design. And we talked about the fact that this is classified inspired, but not slavish to the classified design, and pretty much across the board with these Joe characters. Tom Reilly has gone to the trouble of essentially redesigning them once again. That they have all got new looks, albeit echoing elements of looks that we've seen before. So we've got, for example, Duke here is different to the Duke that we saw on the front cover 2 pages of Duke 1, which itself was a redesign of his uniform. Here we have another redesign of Duke, but very much sort of echoing the Duke that we know and love, and would expect to see those signifiers of like that bandolier, the sort of the yellow hints on his shirt, and so on, and the sequence where we get to see them for the first time, of course, is in itself a little fun nod to the opening sequence to G.I. Joe the movie as well, where they're sort of flying about with jump jetpacks in that sort of bombastic, memorable way.
Or the third scene of the first episode of G.I. Joe from '83, where the Joes infiltrate a base and Stalker uses the jump jetpack, having just, he jumps off the ram, I think. There's another, I think, sort of inadvertent allusion to the cartoon here, where when we see Destro and Cobra Commander for the first time, this isn't how we're first introduced to the characters in the first episode of G.I. Joe, but in an early episode of G.I. Joe, and I can't quite place it, I want to say in one of the first two miniseries, Destro comes into the commander's room. The commander's sitting on a throne, and he's eating, and Destro says, "Commander, your mask." And the commander puts the food down and then puts his cloth mask on and says, "Yes, it takes a strong stomach to something, see my face." And so I don't know that in one of Josh Williamson's notebooks it says redo that scene, but I do think if you are absorbing a lot of sort of, fun and great moments in G.I. Joe history, you might have this kind of and Destro doesn't say anything here, but it's sort of happening for us. We're seeing that something's particular about Cobra Commander's head and his hand. So two things, speaking of character designs, Mark, remind me, why does Cobra Commander have a metal hand, and why does Destro have a metal shoulder? One shoulder.
So yeah, we sort of see this over the shoulder shot of Cobra Commander as Destro walks in on him, and he's taking a screwdriver to his hand. And there's some inset shots there of vials containing crystals, presumably energy crystals, and also a snake. So that element of seeing Cobra Commander there without his mask made me think of that moment from Darth Vader in The Empire Strikes Back, where we see a glimpse of him, of Darth Vader in his...
He's in his pod.
Yeah, it is this meditation chamber, which kind of, just see a brief glimpse of it, don't we? And it's sort of like, sort of this whole other layer to the character. So it's sort of very rare to see like a glimpse of Cobra Commander without the mask. But he's in this state, I guess, because of this explosion in the pages of Cobra Commander. One where he was damaged and then subsequently healed with Cobra La technology, and this metallic hand is new. Previously, it was an organic hand. So I think we're seeing here that Cobra Commander is like experimenting on himself, of sort of using technology and Energon infused organic components potentially to sort of experiment on himself and augment himself. So it's all a little bit body horror, isn't it?
Okay, and what about Destro's shoulder?
I think Destro's shoulder, it was changed because Tom Reilly thought it looked cool.
Okay.
So it's like a suit,
not like...
a suit of armor, isn't it? So there was like that metallic, we sort of, I think there might have been a suit of armor, it may be in his sort of, want a better word, his study room that we saw before potentially, but it's sort of echoing to kind of what we think of when we're thinking of Destro being a Scottish laird, and the history attached to the Destro family and suits of armor, etc. So I think it's Tom having fun and wanting to add something a little bit different into the look of Destro.
This is particularly apparent on the back cover to the regular Tom Reilly A cover. So this is not that Chameleon shot him in the shoulder in Destro number 3 or something, right? It's just a costume thing because it's cool.
That's what I think. Yeah, I think there might be some other logic behind it, but that's what I think.
Okay.
And yeah, they're in Springfield. Their army is growing with every passing day. Scrap Iron is augmenting his technology. There are bats still in play there that are being checked up on by these cobras with some sort of face mask thing going on there. And then we've got the unveil of the weaponry, as we talked about before zip to Abu Dhabi and the introduction of Risk, the new Joe. And I guess this is the team making a mark and as you know, introducing a new character, setting this book apart again, of saying, you know, this isn't you know, ARA, this isn't even classified. We're sort of breaking new ground, introducing new characters ourselves. Do you have any particular thoughts?
Do you think that he is specifically being called back to the G.I. Joe team by Hawk?
Well, I mean,
because Scarlet in issue 1 of Scarlet, she's reporting to some other character, some other general. So I wonder if this is almost Risk's sort of prologue miniseries as a 3-page scene, and in issue 2, you know, he'll be doing something else and someone's going to say, no, go over there, join that team.
Yeah, I mean, from what we know of Risk, we've seen him on the front cover to the book where he seems like part of that same grouping of the G.I. Joes. So I think, you know, we're being directed with the expectation that he will be joining the Joes as part of their team. But it's entirely possible that expectation will be thwarted, that we're sort of having a misdirect, and maybe he's not part of the Joes. Stranger things have happened. He could be part of that Shadow G.I. Joe team, for example, with Flint and Lady J.
Yes, that thought had crossed my mind. Okay, so Mercer shows up. He brings the laser to Destro, who hands it to Cobra Commander. But then in the final pages of the issue, he's the one who leads this assault team of Vipers. And he's wearing his sort of Energon Universe version 2 costume. Mm-hmm. It's not the red Mars sleeveless vest with the dark pants. It's sort of 60% Cobra Viper costume. He's leading some Vipers.
He's leading his Vipers. on that double page, when Destro is setting up the mission, he says, support Mercer and his Vipers.
Okay, yes. And he's much bigger than them, and he's got a helmet. And it's just a Viper helmet. But since we've only ever seen Mercer, you know, as a toy in the 80s and 90s without a helmet, and we've only seen him previously in the Energon Universe without a helmet, I thought this was fun and a little surprising, and I don't think it means anything. My brain, just for a moment, went to Big Boa, and this is not a reference to Big Boa. This is just me having sort of a personal sort of similarity reaction. But you know, because he's a giant sleeveless Cobra who's wearing red and blue and has a helmet, and he doesn't not look like Big Boa, and that's all we'll say about Big Boa, because this is not that at all. But in terms of, you know, and then he, like, you know, beats some guys to a pulp, which is how I played with my Big Boa figure, because he was a little bigger than the other characters, and he just used his fists and his boxing gloves. All right, so we were going from one scene to the next. So you got to Abu Dhabi with Risk, and then did you want to talk about a next scene, or is there something more overall?
We can. I mean, I think the next scene that was interesting was the sort of the team in the pits. The next morning, we get to see Clutch sort of doodling a vamp design, a bit of an upgrade for the a bit. Well, I've lost in thought then. Yeah, an upgrade of what we saw in the pages of Duke. It's another nice little Easter egg, but it's sort of it's subtle, and it's sort of approached organically in the story, and it sort of feeds into you know, Clutch sort of having this background where, you know, he sees himself as being a bit of a ladies' man and sort of trying trying to chat them up, and he's sort of talking, giving CoverGirl a little bit of attention. Hey, CoverGirl, why the dye job? I liked you with the auburn hair. That's why I changed it. A nice little bit of back and forth. But I think changing her hair color might be like another little Easter egg. The fact that CoverGirl had this change in hair color in the animated series, and the fact that it wasn't it was blonde in parts of the animated series, brunette on the figure, and rock and roll sort of being this a more larger than life character. I think he's slapping on his back, ha, she gotcha, sort of very much that sort of Drax type character, just sort of loving life, taking joy in the simple things.
Yeah, big and not subtle in conversation or social interactions. And then we get to see Tom Reilly draw Optimus Prime. And we don't see Optimus Prime's arm, the one where something interesting is happening over in the pages of Transformers. And I feel like this might be a note in the script, like, don't show Prime's right arm, because maybe people have gone this far reading just the G.I. Joe comics. And when that thing happens in, I forget, Transformers 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, it's a fun, weird surprise. And so that's all I have to say about that.
to be fair,
previously
it's the same image that they used in the pages of Duke 5 where they did show his Megatron arm. So that one does look like a recycled image.
All right. Well, you know what? When I saw Tom Reilly in August at Wicked Comic-Con, when I moderated his panel, I said, "What are you working on right now?" He said, "G.I. Joe #1." And I thought, oh yeah, that's coming soon. So he wants to take a tiny shortcut. Look at all that work he did for page 1.
But from a storytelling point as well, it might talk to the fact that they've got some footage of it, and maybe it's limited footage, and so this is the best angle that they've got of this guy, so they're reusing it.
Hey, speaking of reusing art, are these poses of Destro and Duke on the 2-page spread, pages 20 and 21? These aren't the Tom Reilly sort of profiles, are they?
No, they're different.
Because that is the pose, right, where he has the left hand sort of with palm out.
What does he have them? Yeah,
like risk on the one in, I think it's the 50, the one in.
Yeah, it's like they're looking at their
variant
palm. Yeah, I mean it's not.
I'm just giving Tom Reilly.
It's not a million miles away.
Okay.
If you were to flip. Yeah, I mean it's a different image. It is a different image, to be fair.
There's interesting parallel storytelling here, where both Duke and Destro, sort of, Duke belongs to that computer screen with the footage, and he's talking about it, and Destro is also in front of that footage, but he's in a different place, and he's talking about the same footage, and so we have to pretend that sort of the frame of the TV for both these guys, they both the U.S. government and Mars purchased the same TV monitor, same computer monitor. And then you have just flat color on this page. There's no special lighting effects because Duke is inside and Cobra Commander is inside. And yet, Duke is inside and Destro is inside. And yet, in the inking on Destro, Reilly leaves space on the right edges of Destro, his ear and his arm that's almost touching the right side of the page, and then his right arm, the one that overlaps the screen. He's leaving a place for, in his inking, direct light for a highlight to hit, and Bellaire uses the same pale red as his leg strap and his belt and his cowl, or his collar. So there's some kind of red light in that room. Anyway, this is and then the parallel storytelling continues where under Duke there's one. It's a symmetrical spread. It's what I'm saying. Duke's on the left, Destro's on the right. They each have a stripe behind them.
Mm-hmm.
Under Duke is on the far side a Joe panel, and on the inner side is a Cobra panel, and then reversed on the inner side, Cobra panel, on the outer side. On the final page 21 is a Joe panel. Look at the body language when you turn the page to 22, and Baroness is in the front, and we see the glass case. First of all, notice how there are several cords that go into the base of that glass case with the Cybertronian piece. So power, and then there's also steam or smoke, like dry ice or something. So it's refrigerated, and I'm sure, I'm guessing that is in the script. But look at the body language, how everyone is standing differently, right? Baroness is standing differently. Stalker's got his arms folded. He's leaning a little forward. Rock and Roll's got one leg up on the sort of ledge. CoverGirl is standing with her weight on her right leg and then counterbalancing with her left. And then Clutch is leaning against the console. And this is a small sort of thing you can do as an artist, or test you can run if you're reading comics. Look at all the characters in a scene. Are they all just kind of standing around in the same way? Or are they all just kind of sitting around in the same way? Unless you're a bunch of Cobra soldiers marching in Springfield in front of Destro several pages earlier, right? You always stand and sit differently than everyone around you. And when you're sitting in a classroom or at a restaurant or a family gathering, not all at the dinner table necessarily, but all around the TV, look around and you'll see someone's hunching forward, someone's standing, someone's got their hand on the wall by the light switch, someone's turning, and it's just a nice bit of variety here. And each one works with the personality of those characters. Some characters are more tense, some are more relaxed.
And then from a storytelling point of view, we're getting this tension that from the Baroness's perspective, she's, a mercenary and is used to kind of acting on the wrong side of the law and sort of acting in her own self-interest, and looking down on this babysitting mission and this tension with specifically Stalker. You can go anytime you want, Baroness. I'd rather not be on the same team as a war criminal anyway. So some tension in the type of characters that we're dealing with.
That line is amazing. It hits a little bit less since Duke already said a few pages earlier to Hawk, "Sorry, we've got a war criminal on the team," but it's still great.
Just to put a pin in that, he does. It's in this opening sequence when he's describing Baroness, and it's the panel with the flashback to them in the cells together at the bottom of the pit, and he says, "I know you're not a fan of my choice to add Anastasia Sisanova to the team, sir. Considering she's a war criminal you met while we were both locked up, not ideal, but I can't deny her talents." What talents have you got in mind there, Duke? A little bit suspicious.
Yeah, do you think there's a little think there's a little sort of flirty attraction?
Yeah, I think so.
The story is sort of placing between Duke and Baroness.
Yeah, I think that's there. I do think so. And then we have this exchange in which I assume is Russian.
Wait, you didn't check it for the episode? You're not going to translate it for us?
Well, I thought to myself reading this that Tim would be very interested to know what this sequence actually says, but that he didn't look it up because he knew that I would do it for him. and I have. Do you want to find out what they said? Please. So Baroness says to Stalker after this war criminal comment, "Shut up, you stupid old pig, or I'll cut your neck." And Stalker said, "Try it, and I will not only kick your ass, I'll drag you back to your mother and father and show them how their little princess has become a waste of life. They brought you into this world, so maybe they'll do us a favor and take you back."
So earlier in the comic, I think it's page 2, Duke is saying to Hawk how great Stalker is and how he knows a lot of languages. So this gets to pick up that thread.
That's good.
And speaking of Stalker saying spicy things, several pages later, when a grenade lands in front of him, he looks down and says "shit," but in the word balloon, it's $, hashtag, asterisk, and the percentage symbol, and then an exclamation mark. And I feel like for a couple years, I don't know when it was, 20 years ago or 10 years ago, I feel like the major American comics publishers tended to do this if they had a character saying a curse word with symbols. When they wanted to actually imply the S word, they would use the character that looks like S, the character that looks like H, and maybe a character that kind of looks like an I, and maybe sort of the T. And I really appreciated that because I knew which word they were saying. And if you do like ampersand, asterisk, parentheses, upside down, ampersand, I actually don't know which bad word they're saying. And I feel like if it's a movie or someone yelling far away with a bunch of noise, you kind of do know which word they're saying, which bad word they're saying, even if you're not supposed to hear it because it's naughty or it's being obstructed. And so I like this device in comics where if you're doing this word, you actually spell it this way. You start with the $, and the hashtag. And then I feel like some of the publishers stopped doing that. They would mix it up because they didn't want to sort of be offensive with the word that looks kind of like the actual bad word. So it's just a little thing. I appreciate going back to that previous mode here, starting with the $, and the hashtag, because he's cursing, but it's still, well, actually, you can say the S word in PG-13.
It's more fun.
But in terms of sort of the Hasbro rules here, you can't say the S word in this comic, even though it's a T for teen comic. So it's still, kind of PG-13.
And so next up in the plot, the power gets cut and the screens turn red with a Cobra symbol on it. And there's this exciting little moment where Baroness says, "Nothing I've ever seen before." Stalker, "Me neither." Duke, "Everybody down." And it's just this moment that the G.I. Joe team encountering the Cobra symbol for the first time and not knowing what the heck it is.
Yeah, this is fun because the scene has a lot of menace. And I'm considering that in those 3 panels, no shots are fired, no one is hurt. We don't see a window with a missile coming or a helicopter outside. In a previous panel, we didn't see Cobra Commander say attack. We didn't see Cobra Commander push a button. We didn't see, Scrap Iron outside like saying heh heh. We actually don't know what this is. And so you're right. This is another Energon Universe first appearance, the Cobra symbol. Wait, didn't we see the Cobra symbol on a helicopter?
Yeah, we've seen the symbol. We've just not seen Joes have just never seen it up to this point. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I'll take back the first appearance thing, but this first witness.
Here's a thing that Stalker says, "Me neither" as well. So possibly some of Scarlet's intel might not have got to him yet at this point. Just as a sidebar there, Tim.
Snowjob, where are you? Hurry! Oh man, I guess talk about how many days or weeks have elapsed since Scarlet 5. What makes this scene is the color, and then sort of you get worried when the characters who should know this kind of thing don't. Like in a movie when the kids are worried and the parents aren't, but then the parents are worried, then you really worry for the kids. So Baroness doesn't know, and she's a manipulator, and Stalker can do all this awesome stuff and he doesn't know. And then Duke, who's a smooth character, he doesn't panic, but he reacts forcefully. And what he says is very specific. He doesn't say get ready or red alert. He says get down. He said everybody down. Get down.
So, we're in an action sequence here. The Cobra Troopers are running up the staircase, which, looks like it's kind of one of those sort of emergency access kind of stairwells, which isn't the main one. It's only used in an emergency. And we've got Fang out there in the background causing menace. Duke does a rock style unbelievable leap from a building to the Fang helicopter and landing on its skids and overpowering the pilot. And in the meantime, the Joes are sort of struggling to maintain ground. There's this grenade sort of at their feet that sort of incapacitates some of them.
Wait. I think we have to talk about the grenade more.
Okay.
I'm not sure I would describe some of them as incapacitated. I am worried about Stalker because the grenade explodes. Oh, you know what? Okay. Are you thinking that it touches his foot, he looks down and says the S word, and then the next panel is an explosion? Do you think that in between those two panels, he kicked it far away? Because I thought that it went off at his feet. Because in the next panel, you just see his head, right? He's on the ground, but he's sort of cropped out. So you can't tell how much sort of damage he's taken.
Yeah.
And I thought, wait, are they going to kill a character in the first issue? They're surely not going to kill a character in the first issue. Well, maybe they're going to really injure a character for the first issue and take him off the board for a couple issues. Remember, folks, Optimus Prime in Marvel's 1984 Transformers series did not have his head for almost a year at the beginning of the series. Okay, back to G.I. Joe.
Yeah, I did feel that if that was going to be a death, they would made a bigger deal of it. So yeah, in my mind, I don't know if they made all of the mechanics, but to make story logic, I guess maybe he's kicked it, and it's still in the room and close enough to him to sort of for the concussive blast to throw him against the wall and knock him out or something similar, but not enough to actually kill him.
Right.
That's kind of how I sort of pieced it together.
Okay, so I interrupted you. You said, and then Mercer leads these
Yeah,
weapons.
and so I guess we know it's Mercer from the uniform that was established for the fact that he's super hench and muscled and veiny on his arms, and the fact that it's been established that it was Mercer and his Vipers that would be leading the assault, and he's got this different design to the rest of the Vipers. That he's kind of got this red accent, lines across his chest, which aren't seen on the others. But it's, I think we sort of skirted around the edges of this, but it's, very cool that given Mercer's background from his file cards, the connection to the Vipers, the fact that he's been built up as this sort of, lead character in this universe. And now he's sort of in command of this, it seems like a bit more of an elite force, that the Viper is like, a step up from the rest of the Cobra troopers, that maybe the troopers are like general infantry, and the Vipers are a bit more like, a SEAL squad or, shock troops or something extra special in the Cobra world. So they are pinned down by the lasers, and they're sort of in the, trying their very, their darndest to protect the MacGuffin device, and Rock and Roll is sort of holding the line, sort of trying to go mano a mano without the use of his weaponry, which was sort of taken down by the earlier explosions. And all
we should pause here a moment before we get to the final page and the last couple panels of the second to last page. Listeners, we are going to spoil the end of this issue, so if you haven't read it, go read it and come back. Okay, back to you, Mark.
So Rock and Roll, he's sort of, getting a little bit beaten up here. We've got a silhouette of here, and, blood is dripping down from his face, and it's leading to this sort of page turn. As we're getting there, he's saying, "Don't worry, Duke, I've been shot before. I can handle a light show," sort of playing down, I guess, the threat of these laser rifles that the Cobra Troopers are using. And then we've got a just full page splash of rock and roll being
the last page of the book
being lit up by these two Vipers, sort of blasting him with their laser rifles, and the ferocity of that fire is sort of, seems to be burning through rock and roll and lighting up these Vipers. It's essentially, this page is blue and white and black, really, isn't it?
Yes, and he is impaled, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 laser blasts go through him, and an 8th one sort of hits the surface of his leg. So he has been shot through with an Energon laser 7 or 8 times in a full page splash. And the only thing that Joshua Williamson has to say for himself at this moment is to be continued.
We're geared up to the force of these lasers by that earlier target sequence with Cobra Commander, where he's firing at a dummy, and we've seen the impact that it has, and sort of essentially ripping that dummy that was wearing a flak jacket of some description, seemed to be ripping it to shreds. So we've kind of seen the impact, or the power of this device prior to this panel as well.
So, Mark, do you think rock and roll is dead?
Well, I think that's very much what we're meant to think. We're meant to think that this is pretty catastrophic, that, this is the end of the road for rock and roll. But being a journeyed comic reader, until the fat lady sings, I don't know, who's the fat lady in G.I. Joe? Is there any fat ladies? Then, it's not over, because we've not, up to this point, seen the effect that these Energon laser rifles will have on organic material. So it just gives me enough wiggle room and doubt to not necessarily conclude until we see the story beat that follows this one, to know for sure exactly what actually will be happening to rock and roll.
My counter to this is that in the letters page, Joshua Williamson says, the biggest challenge I've run into with this series is patience. There's so many cool stories, characters, and toys that I want to play with. And certainly a first issue in a new continuity wants to make a mark and, move in a different direction, and wants to do something big and with stakes that other versions haven't done. And also, if you're not reading Transformers, folks, how many Transformers has Daniel Warren Johnson definitely killed just in the first, we're up to issue 14, but just in the first 5? It's like 3 or 4 or 5, like favorite characters from 84 and 85 and 86. And in the letters page, people said, I won't spoil it for you folks, oh, is so-and-so really dead? And he said, kind of, yeah, I want to not focus on that character, or I want to do something different. And, they're at war. So I hope rock and roll's not dead. If he's not, there has to be a really good explanation. I think he's dead. And also, don't forget that the 3 pages of the preview, the PDF that Skybound was making available to press and retailers, these 3 pages, these were the ones that were redacted. They didn't want us to see this. And I should say, I thought that was because I did not read the issue, right? I've had the PDF for a couple of weeks. I did not read the issue because I don't really want to read comics on a screen. I really want to hold the object. And also I wanted to experience it closer to when it actually came out, as an object that I get at my store. But I had assumed that if something was hidden at the end, it had to do with Transformers, or not Void Rivals, but something larger in the Energon universe. I did not think it would be the possible death of a major character.
Yeah, I had a similar thought that there would be, to be redacted, the most likely thing that there would be something big and spoilery, and potentially talking to kind of the bigger Energon universe. Although I did think as well, There is a possibility that they're playing with the idea that it's something really super big and spoilery, and it's just that Tom Reilly hasn't drawn that page yet. But
that's funny. That's funny. Or maybe it's both.
Maybe a bit of both.
It's like, this scene at the end is going to be pretty surprising. It's like, we haven't gotten them back yet. That's funny.
But
not to cast any aspersions onto Mr. Reilly's abilities or speed.
But it is a big moment, and it's a big cliffhanger to leave the story on, and you definitely want to read issue 2 to find out kind of what happens immediately after this. Where does it go from here?
Yeah.
So that's the issue. In the back of the book, we have another full page letter from Joshua Williamson, who's sort of reiterating kind of, his love for G.I. Joe.
Folks, you don't have to read this page. Just listen to or watch the Talking Joe interview with Joshua Williamson. He says all this stuff there to us, but better.
Yeah, and it's all about the fact that his big thing is really his enthusiasm for this thing, and how can he constrain that and not run too far ahead, particularly given all of the amazing characters in this universe that he'd like to get to eventually. I guess that's my main takeaway from that page. But yeah, he sort of talks about being in the long haul, and that's definitely something that I want to see as like someone who sees himself as having a grand vision, beyond just a short arc, and sort of trying to see that through. And it sounds like they've got big plans and thinking far ahead, and laying ground early to get us there. Beyond the letter page, is there anything else in the back of the book?
Then there is a 2-page spread with a little blue bar on the top, and it says, "I'm with #Team Joe, new recruits from Skybound Insiders." And it's 2 pages of little squares, and it's photos of real people, photos that people have taken of themselves or that someone has taken of them, and then uploaded it to the Skybound Insiders website. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So more than 100 little squares, tiles of people, almost all head and shoulders, on these 2 pages. And then on the bottom on the right one, it says, "Join Insiders for free now and get 5,000 bonus points with secret code Joe." There's a QR code. And then on the bottom it says, "Welcome to the Energon Universe." And then you turn the page, and it happens again, but now it's all different people. And it says, "I'm with Team Cobra." And I did not spend a full 15 minutes, but I don't think I recognize anyone. But I also, when I talk with people online, I sometimes sort of focus more on sort of their printed name or code name. And, half the people have a little tiny image of Captain America's head or something. So I don't know that if I did know someone from online, I would necessarily recognize them. I will point out that amongst all these photos of people, most of them are just someone's head and shoulders in front of a wall, maybe outside, maybe inside. A couple of them, people are holding something. In one of them, someone is holding a tuba. One is holding a sign that says, "Go Team Joe." In one of them, a person is holding 2 CGC copies of Marvel issue 53. In one of them, a person is holding Cobra Commander issue, was that 5? In one of them, someone is holding, it's a little hard to tell. I think it's 2 IDW issues of G.I. Joe in bags and boards. One of them is a person and their dog, and one of them is just a dog, and another one is just a dog, and then 2 of them are just cats. And no, folks, despite how 3 of them are just cats. There's another dog. Despite how awesome my cat is, and cats I have had in the past, I am not in this. I did not send in my photo. Oh, and one of them, someone's dressed up as Negan. Wait, David T. Allen. Oh, David T. Allen. Oh, he's going to be excited. Congratulations. There's David T. Allen, or someone who looks very much like David T. Allen, with David T. Allen's smile and glasses and hat, and I'm seeing the blue and stars of an American flag behind him. What was I saying?
I think you were
I'm
saying
not here, and these are not my
cats are all evil and are on Cobra's side. Is that right?
I was someone's making kind of an evil face.
And just to add, I can also see Greg Augustin, friend of the show and extended member of the After Action Report team. He was the guy behind the cool graphics, collecting all of the variant covers onto a card back style display. And I can also see friend of the show, Shane Simic. I can also see who I think is Toy Kind of Moods, Travis Moody, but it might be a looky-likey. And possibly Joe on Joe podcasts, Joe Schlepsky, but again, may just be a looky-likey. I can also see a lot of guys in their 40s and not a lot of kids reading comics here. They seem to hint that this might continue on for a few issues, so I think we might have a few more of these over the next few issues of people that have sent in their photos. Will be nice little game of seeing who and what you can spot in those. It should be fun.
So I would much rather have letters pages, because I don't like fun and I don't want people to get their photos in comics at the expense of my letters pages. But and this would be a good place to run some letters from Destro and Scarlet issues 4 and 5. That's what you do when a miniseries leads into the regular series. But this is a way that you can connect with readers nowadays. You give people a thing to do online. You download a code, or you send in a thing, or you get an app, or there's a QR code.
And if those 100 people show 10 of their friends, then that's 1,000 people.
Or if those 100 people buy another copy.
Yeah.
Because they got their face in their new favorite comic book. Well, now I feel bad that I didn't look more carefully, because if all of a sudden I saw someone I think who I know, then who else might I be missing? Well, folks, be sure to tell us on the Facebook page if you got your face in issue 1, and we will definitely forget to mention it when we record our episode about issue 2, but we'll feel bad, and we will definitely thumbs up you when you post on Facebook. I will say, though I didn't try and do this. I did sign up for Skybound Insiders, so I would get that first extra trading card for the Kickstarter campaign for the compendium. But I don't imagine I'll do a lot of this, because it's just a little more work than I want to do. Because it's one of the variant covers, right? That you talked about in our previous episode. It's the left cover and the right cover with the Joes on one side and the Cobras on the other side. That's the Skybound Insiders.
Yeah, that's an exclusive
cover.
Yeah. If you get platinum points, but you've got to get so many points. I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy.
It sort of reminds me of having just flown to a G.I. Joe convention. It sort of reminds me of airlines frequent flyer miles, and you go and you log in, and then you get another ticket on that website, and you pay with money with your credit card, and it says, oh, do you want 1,000 extra miles? It's only $100. And I think, I thought I'm earning miles. Now I can also buy miles. So is there going to be this thing where you go to the Skybound Insiders website and you, I don't know, order a Funko Pop of Invincible's dad with blood on him, and it's $70 or 6,000 points, but you can also buy 1,000 more points or something
like that.
The last thing is an ad that we've seen before with Invincible, and it says, being a fan just got more rewarding, Skybound Insiders. And then the inside back cover is an ad for Transformers 14, Void Rivals 14, and G.I. Joe 2 on sale this month, later this month, and next month. Robert Kirkman's all-new Transformers and G.I. Joe Shared Universe continues every month in these titles.
Featuring Cobra characters in the pages of Void Rivals and his tanks in the pages of and Mars employees in the pages of Transformers. So it's a sweep across the board. All three are G.I. Joe comics this month.
If you made it to the end of this episode and you came to the Tom Reilly signing on November 16th at my store, Hub Comics, thank you. It was great seeing you, and thank you so much for buying so much.
I was gonna.
You really made my day.
Can I check it?
Even though the line was long, and even though Tom Reilly had been signing for hours, you bought so much. It's great.
Can I check an error detected?
Yes, please. Oh, the thing you caught.
Yeah, so is the thing that I caught, did it get fixed? So the thing that I caught ahead of time and let Skybound know about was that when...
Wait, be more specific. We got the PDF of issue 1 several weeks ago with those final 3 pages all blacked out when you were speaking with someone at Skybound about our Joshua Williamson interview, which was not only before issue 1 came out, but before retailers finalized their orders. And you read the PDF and you caught something. What was it? What did you say to the nice Skybound person? And would you read what they said in reply?
Okay, here we go.
Because it's great.
Yeah, so they sent us this preview PDF and I replied back. I said, I did have a piece of feedback. If the issue hasn't been locked down, on page 11 in the top right corner, as Mercer is introduced for the first time in this issue, he is carrying a rifle which seems to be missing the stock, which then appears in the next panel. Either I've misunderstood or it could do with a color fix. And our contact at Skybound replied...
you also complimented them on the issue, and this person replied enthusiastically, a very nice sentence, and then said, and good eye. I just talked to our editor about Mercer's rifle, and Tom is currently fixing that. Lots of gratitude in one email. Looking forward to talking to you when we do our Joshua Williamson interview. All right, so I'm opening up the PDF to do a quick comparison, and it's a little bit different. Yeah, it doesn't quite look like a thing goes all the way behind his sort of elbow and bicep, but it is definitely a smidge longer. So yeah, so the stock, it looks like there's a stock that's almost as big and long as the one in the following panel.
Very good.
So Mark, you're the real hero of Skybound's G.I. Joe #1, because how embarrassing would a continuity error have been from this company that does such good work and takes such care of this brand? Thank goodness they sent a copy to you ahead of time. I think they should send you those 2 Skybound Insiders variant covers as a thank you, and 1,000 bonus points.
That will help me towards the 1,000,000 bonus points for the next special. There was another error detected in the preview copy that I don't know if it did get fixed or not. This was on the double page with the shard in the middle. The second word balloon from Duke, he says a large selection of their technology was recce-overed.
Oh no, not fixed. Well, I know what letter I'm writing. I'm going to be really grumpy about it, and they're not going to decide to, for no reason, give me some Skybound points.
Got to say it in a nice way, Tim. So,
dear idiots.
So,
when I make comics, I have proofreaders.
So I'm hoping that I can edit this and get this out not too long after the shelf date of the book. And if you are happening to listen to it prior to the afternoon of the 16th, Saturday, the 16th of November, Tim, do you have any recommendations for what people should be planning to do?
G.I. Joe fans should head to Hub Comics in Somerville, Union Square, Somerville, Massachusetts, for our Tom Reilly signing, which runs from noon to 4. What a coup for Hub Comics to get this talented artist right after the premiere of this exciting new comic, particularly when the owner of that store is such a G.I. Joe fan. Hub Comics has lots of G.I. Joe issue number 1 variant covers, and all 5 issues of all 4 Prelude miniseries, Duke, Cobra Commander, Destro, and Scarlet, are discounted. We do have the Duke trade paperback, the Cobra Commander trade paperback, the Scarlet trade paperback, Destro's not out yet, as well as Transformers Volume 1, Transformers Volume 2, Void Rivals Volume 1, and Void Rivals Volume 2, and the Real American Hero Compendium, and still some IDW Transformers More Than Meets the Eye and Robots in Disguise and, quote, ongoing by Mike Costa collections. So, as well as loads of back issues from IDW and Marvel, and a smidge of Devil's Due. So it is a one-stop G.I. Joe shop for you. Come on out.
It's a G.I. Joe Palooza. That's a thing now. And when you're not talking to me about G.I. Joe comics or talking to fans who have come to a signing at the store that you run, where else can people find you, Tim?
youtube.com/@AtomicAbe for funny, smart video essays about TV and film, and my blog, all about G.I. Joe, realamericanbook.com.
Very good. If you are new to Talking Joe and you want to find out more about us and the places we can be found, head on over to talkingjoe.co.uk. That's the website with links to all the places that we are, so you can join our Facebook group and join in with the discussion there. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on Instagram. If you're listening to us on a podcast platform, why not leave us a review and a 5-star rating? If you're watching us on YouTube, you can hit like and hit subscribe. We're also on Patreon, patreon.com/talkingjoe. So a big thanks to all of our backers there, which include Richard, Sam, Bill, Christopher, Justin, Rob, Shane, Simon, Chris, Joe, Craig, Frank, and Mike, who get early access to episodes as well as some exclusive content. Stay tuned to G.I. Joe. We've got some cool interviews still to come. We'll be wrapping up our Devil's Due coverage of their America's Elite series with the World War III saga. We'll be heading back into the world of A Real American Hero with issue 311 as Chris Mooneyham returns to the book as the artist. And of course, we'll be continuing to cover the Energon Universe, and particularly looking forward to G.I. Joe issue 2 when that comes out next month. We didn't score this, Tim.
8.
I'm really excited. I want to give it 10. I'm going to give it a 9 just to give wriggle room for them to blow my socks off even more next time. It would have been a 10, but there was that spelling error, which... Now, I think that's us done for this week. But remember...
Nobody beats Talking Joe, an international podcast!
Laters.
What a long episode. I'm sorry. Well, I mean, this it's a big deal. Yeah. And we didn't even talk about 50 covers.
True.
That would have been a 3-hour episode. I would have felt so bad halfway through the covers, and then you would have said, I have to break this into 2.